Hello again, everyone. I'm Frank Gifford, and we're going to begin our day with live coverage of the $100,000 Midas Open from Gretna, Louisiana. This week's stop on the Professional Bowlers Tour. And going into the finals, the leader is Earl Anthony. And should a bowler roll a perfect game in our final match, he's going to win an additional $250,000. And I'll be here throughout the day to keep you up to date on the latest breaking sports news. But right now, let's begin our day by joining Chris Schenkel in Louisiana.
And now in our first match, Don Johnson, the number 5 bowler, will be going against Mark Roth. Remember that each competitor keeps advancing in our championship match play format as long as he keeps his winning streak alive. And there are so many incentives today, though I'm fired up for this one.
This is the big one. $250,000 in the last game for a perfect game, but a tremendous prize fund on top of a $100,000 tournament, the Midas Open.
36-year-old Don Johnson, a great champion. That was the ball he used last night and yesterday, moving from, 22nd to 5th?
One of the big charges I've ever seen on a tour, Chris, and that's what he's been famous for. Don used to really come to life at any point in the tournament and almost take over a la Earl Anthony's style, and has been missing that for the last couple of years, but last night he turned it back on at 250 average the last 8 games.
Now going cross lane for the 10 pin on the left lane. With a spare here, and if you've just joined us, we're at the expressway lanes in Gretna, Louisiana, which is about 20 minutes from the French Quarter. Bo and I love to visit that area and listen to all that jazz.
Right on.
And Mark Roth, and look at the action of the pins.
This year's leading money winner, Mark Roth, and that is one of the reasons. Mark Roth gets the ball well out over the foul line. See the ball released out, way out, about 4 feet over the line, slight bounce, and into the spin and roll that makes his ball so devastating at the back end.
Now he will try to double and take the lead here in our very first match. There it is, a double. Bo and I have talked about the $250,000 for the final game, should a 300 be bowled. Of course, in any of the other games, should one of our bowlers come up with 12 in a row, we will give him a check from ABC for $10,000, and the Ford Motor Company will give him a beautiful T-Bird.
Solid strike by Johnson, leaving the 10 pin in the first frame. I believe that the players are just going to be smacking that pocket all day. It's going to be almost a matter of carry, and the players we have today are just about as strong a field as you can possibly put together in bowling. So it should be some exciting, high-scoring matches.
Thus far on the national tour, there have been 28 perfect games thus far. None, of course, in our finals, which are televised live each week here on ABC. This year, anyway. Beautiful double by Don Johnson. Now bowling out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And now Mark Roth, who just recently, Bo, became part owner of a pro shop.
Yes, he did, in Staten Island, New York. He and a good friend of his named Bob Simonelli got together and went in the pro shop business, and smart investment.
Going for 3. Yes.
You can see the way he throws that ball. He knows how to drill them. Mark usually drills a new ball every week to come out on the tour. He likes the feel of a new thumb hole. Mark with the solid, powerful game we've always talked about. The push away. Notice the high backswing, the cocked wrist at the bottom of the release, and the long follow through.
All right, now with 3 in a row, Mark shooting in the 4th frame of our first game. Mark Roth. Coming up with the bucket on the left lane, 2-4-5-8.
That time he fell off balance. Mark has a tendency to run up the foul line a little too fast every once in a while, and he got off balance to the right, did not get the proper leverage. 2-4-5-8.
In itself, what you said, Bo, is a pretty good tip for a lot of bowlers.
Yes,
Don't be in a hurry.
Keep those feet slow.
Oh, chopping the 4 off at an open frame for Mark Roth.
We'll be back in a moment.
Jaski of Greendale, Wisconsin, averaging .230 this week. He finished 6th. He earned $3,550.
2 weeks will be near his home for the Miller High Life Open, and Rick made quite a charge last night, just missing out.
Now looking for a double Roth. And again, a 2, 4, 5, 8.
That looks like just a little lack of concentration on Mark's part. He was lackadaisical, did not put the powerful turn on it that he normally gets. All the strikes he's had so far in this match have been light hits. And if you don't get enough turn, you can leave the bucket. I'll see how he converts it this time.
Uh-oh.
One thing about Mark, he's consistent, whether he's striking or missing. And once again, he hooks right by the 2, 4, 5, 8. And Chris, we've said it before. These players do not practice many spares before they go on the finals. And Mark is really paying the penalty here.
Stuck at the line a little bit on that last release. And Bo, your tip today is on the release of the bowling ball, coming up later. Leaving the 10.
Almost left the swishing 7-10. And that would just be another bad break in what's happened to Mark this game. You watch how the 5-pin will move over into the 4-pin and slide the 4-pin almost around the 7-pin. The 5-pin just barely taking out the 7.
Tremendous speed and covering the 10-pin on the left lane for Mark Roth. 29 pins now separating these two professionals.
Don Johnson really has the hammer in his hand. 29 pins, and he could increase it to 39 in the 8th.
Don Johnson, whose son has a birthday today, and Don told me when he talked to him, he wondered who he had to meet in the first game, and his dad told him he had to meet Mark Roth, and his son said, uh-oh.
Well, his son can relax, his son Jimmy, because Mark Roth is well in hand for Don Johnson right now.
5'11", 165 pounds. Leaving the 7.
All the hits on the left lane being a little light, but Johnson with a big lead did not want to charge the nose and give Roth an opening. Johnson with a possible 234 game. The best Mark Roth can do is 206.
Don Johnson, 25 PBA titles, tied with Dick Weber at that spot. As you see, a member of the PBA for 15 years. Spare in the 9th for Johnson.
Mark with a strike in the 9th still has a possible 206, but it's going to be a little late, Chris. And I really want to tell a story about Mark Roth. I had the pleasure of staying at his home this week in between the Rolaids Open and the Midas Open here. And this guy is really some fellow. He is quite a gentleman. And just for the pleasure of it, we went down and rode the New York City buses, and that was really a kick. He's sweating a little today. He's in trouble.
Who has a cashing streak of 31 straight tournaments. Great PBA record, and made the finals 4 of the 5 tournaments he's competed in.
That is some record to make the TV finals 4 out of 5. But even more impressive, Chris, is 31 consecutive tournaments. That's on all sorts of bowling conditions all around the country, all year round.
Our statistician today, a great bowler named Dave Davis.
Former Firestone winner and national champion. Shows us that Mark Roth, best he can shoot is 206.
The winner here overall today will get a check for $14,000. 8, 6, 5, and 4 down the line. So the loser here will get $4,000, and Mark Roth, bowling at 205, he will leave New Orleans area with $4,000. Don Johnson will have an opportunity to go for it all as he will next meet Cliff McNeely.
puts a nail in the coffin with that strike. Don Johnson, possible 234. We'll be back in a moment to meet Cliff McNeely.
First game has ended, and Don Johnson, a great champion, winning by 29 pins over Mark Roth, 234 to 205. And now we'll meet 24-year-old Cliff McNeely from San Lorenzo, California. Now Don Johnson, bowled to 234 if you just joined us in our live coverage of the Professional Bowlers Tour. First shot, second game. Perfect. Now, there is Henry Stram. He and Ralph Weiger are both from Gary, Indiana. They were roommates at Purdue University, played, of course, on the same Boilermaker football team. So they're having a little reunion here in New Orleans.
Purdue, a school of another famous sportscaster I know named Chris Schenkel.
Yes. Proud of it. Well, a little tentative, as Pancho Gonzalez would say on our tennis series.
You've got it, Chris. Cliffy is not used to the finals, televised finals, and he's a little timid starting out, and he has to charge to beat Don Johnson. Don Johnson, aggressive, experienced player, and he really wants to win.
There's no timidity on Wide World today with Olga Korbut, Nellie Kim, and all the Soviet gymnastics stars. Figure 8 stock car championship in the world barrel jumping. That follows for most of these ABC stations.
Well, with Olga Korbut and Nellie Kim, you also have some beauty.
Ah, yes. So it's a fine spare for Cliff McNeely. And he'll move over to the left side. And though week in and week out, traveling all these 16 stops, just look at the number of people that come out here and watch our live coverage.
It is really fantastic, Chris. Every week, it's just about a sellout for the televised finals, and people really enjoy it. They enjoy meeting the players, and there's a close contact. Right now, there's a spectator sitting only 3 or 4 feet away from Cliff McNeely, and that's really enjoyable for those spectators to watch that action that close.
Beautiful strike for Cliff, and that should ease some of the tension that is always surrounding these head-to-head live matches where the lights are bright, money is big, and it's important to all of these bowlers who travel week in and week out with great expenses to cash, and especially be in the final 5 where the money is pretty large.
Johnson had to step back off the approach, Chris. A pin fell over by itself back there, and he has to get a re-rack. So it'll be just a moment's delay. I just want to say something, Chris, that, you know, the last 300 game we had on our national telecast was at the Midas Open in 1974 by Jim Stephanie. So with any kind of luck today, history might repeat itself in 1977 for $250,000. That would be all right.
We've had 3 on our PBT telecasts over the 15 and a quarter years. And unfortunately, for some reason, I missed all 3, Bo, so I'm really anxious to get one, especially here today in the final game.
All right.
Johnson now hoping to double. Ah, yes. That coming in the second frame. Let's have a replay here now, Bo.
Notice Don Johnson, a great push away, and how close his arm is to his body, shoulders level, but watch the arm veer to the right after he releases the ball. It's straight through, then the arm veers to the right. Now, that's just his natural style, but notice how the ball went straight through to his target before he followed through to the right. That's very important.
Third frame. Double up, double working. Winner of the first game, 234 to 205. Still perfect in the second game. Don Johnson bowling out of Las Vegas now, and Cliff McNeely now is up as we have a $100,000 purse here for the week. In first place today, 14,000, 8, 6, 5, and 4. Mark Roth has nailed down the 4,000, having lost to Don Johnson in the first game. Smooth. Cliff McNeely. Speaking of smooth, I'd like to thank great announcer Al Michaels for joining you last week and filling in while we were watching the Blades, the figure skaters in Hartford, Connecticut.
Well, we enjoyed that show too, Chris, but Al Michaels did a super job, and I'm glad to have you back.
Thank
There's
you.
the release of Cliff McNeely. Nice, smooth rolling ball, an excellent shot, solid in the pocket. Whoops, he ran right into it. Trying to even the match up in the fourth frame.
There's that bucket again on the left lane, 2-4-5-8 for McNeely.
I wonder what's going through his mind. He watched Mark Roth leave that 2-4-5-8 and miss it every way he could possibly could. Don Johnson hasn't made it yet. We've had 3 buckets in the first 2 games, and nobody has converted it yet. He's taking a little extra time thinking of a strategy that he wants to make. Not to hook by it, but not to chop it.
There it is. Awesome. Awesome looking. 4 pins. Third time we've had a bucket blown here. This one by Cliff McNeely. We'll be back after this. Hey.
And that's the first emotion he's showing in 3 times on our teleclass. Cliffy got a break, got the wall shot, and closed the gap to 5 pins with Don Johnson.
We know he has plenty of emotion because he lists his 2 hobbies as music and horse racing. In fact, he hopes to win a tournament so he can buy a thoroughbred.
1974 Sporting News Rookie of the Year, Cliffy McNeely, can take the lead in this 8th frame, trailing by 5.
Here in the Carnival City, they have horse racing going on right now. And 2 of the big contributors to the sport of thoroughbred are Pete Fountain and Al Hurt. They love the races.
Right on.
Coming up a little high.
The 4-9, Cliff McNeely worrying about the bucket. The 2-4-5 may have psyched him out. Moved a little too far right on the approach, the adjustment, and left at 4-9. Odds 7-2. That's for a pro. He should make it 2 times out of every 7. And I don't think anybody's made it this year, so maybe we're due for it.
Okay. That's how it should be shot. Here's the grip, McNeely. Nope. Open frame for McNeely now, and Johnson is back up, ready to bowl. There you see the expanse of the expressway lanes. Series of lanes of 20 on this side, and directly behind us another 20. And in the younger days, Kokomo, Don Johnson.
The Kokomo kid. He's just as tough today as he was then, though. Look at that.
Strike up. Leaving the 4-7 here on the right lane.
Before the show, I talked to Don Johnson, asked him why he lofted the ball so far over the foul line.
Well, starting yesterday, I was in 22nd place, and I was going nowhere, so I just went back to some of the basic principles that I teach in Las Vegas of getting my right knee down. And I really concentrated on getting the right knee into the shot, and all of a sudden, my strike ball came back.
4-7 now, Johnson. Whoops. Okay. That was a spare for Don in the 8th, leading now by 19 pins. And if you just joined us, he defeated Mark Roth in the first game, 234 to 205.
Don Johnson coming up in the 9th frame, working at a 219 pace, but Cliff McNeely can still strike out for 220, can go right down to the 10th.
All this from the Carnival City of New Orleans, Louisiana. And the Mardi Gras only a week or so away. Really accepting the pressure here today. Don Johnson, which he has done so often.
Cliff McNeely coming up in the 9th. If he wants to break his losing streak in the televised finals, he has to start striking. The key 9th frame, trailing by 19, he still can shoot 220.
The key 9th.
Well, because if he doesn't strike in the 9th, he can't set up that big 10th frame. The strike in the 9th frame is always the pressure strike, can put the pressure on the other opponent.
Sure, that answered some of our viewers' question. Leaving the 4 on the right lane.
Just babying the ball a little bit, Chris. You have to keep what we say, amped up. You cannot get lazy and let that ball just roll too high and hook too hard. Now, reason we said these fellows are using longer approaches today is to get the speed on the ball. Cliff McNeely is not using that speed. Now, he's tall enough that he doesn't have to use the whole approach like Don Johnson or Marshall Holman, but he must maintain that speed to hold the pocket.
And the winner of this head-to-head match will meet Marshall Holman. We can't wait. He's really anxious to get out there, and I think you'll like his colorful style. You've seen him before in our telecasts because he's been successful here in 1977. Now, 10th frame for McNeely.
Cliff McNeely must throw 2 strikes in the 10th to even have a chance to win. Don Johnson can win with even an open frame if Cliff does not get 2 strikes.
Coming up high, leaving the 310.
Cliff has just not been able to put it together today. He's a little high, a little light, and not make the adjustments. And the key to bowling well on the Pro Tour, whether it's on the televised finals or during the whole week, is to maintain your concentration and keep a steady pace.
Is that one of the keys to Earl Anthony's success on the tour, that concentration?
Excellent concentration, tremendous confidence, and, of course, a great God-given bowling talent.
Okay. Taking out the 3, leaving the 10, and it's a 187 for 24-year-old Cliff McNeely. Don Johnson, he is the winner, winning 2 in a row here in our live telecast. He'll meet Marshall Holman next. And there's Don Johnson's previous strike before we went to commercial, and look at his reaction. He has 4 in a row now in the 5th frame. Yeah! 5-7 to go. Remember, this is the semifinal game and not the final. But there's still $10,000 and a Thunderbird at stake in this game. And more important is the fact that the winner will go into the finals against Earl Anthony for the big, big money. 30 pins. Johnson in the lead. 6th frame. Okay, halfway. Now let's go to Nelson Burton.
Bush Meade is the current king of bowling. The man who started with 6 in a row for the $250,000 last year. And Earl, the lanes look like they're in good shape. I think you have a go at it this year. What do you think?
Well, Bo, what I'm going to try to do first of all is win the tournament. If I get out of the gate with a bunch of strikes, then I'll start thinking about it if I've got the guy behind far enough. But right away, first thing I'm going to think of is winning the tournament.
All right, Earl, and let's see what Holman can do.
All right, he's got a double working for him. Into that pocket, and another powerful strike for the 22-year-old from Medford, Oregon, who averaged 231 this week. With 3 in a row now, he'll be shooting in the 7th frame, 30 pins down against Don Johnson, who has 6 in a row.
You know something Earl Anthony told me just before we did that interview is he says this Marshall Holman is a tough, tough kid. No matter how many strikes Johnson throws against him, he'll still be in there trying.
Leaving a 10-pin on the left lane. Marshall Holman, 2nd in the Light Classic, 2nd in the Ford Open, 12th in the Showboat, 4th in the Quaker State, 20th in last week's Rolaids Open.
Fabulous record for such a young man. Cross lane for the 10-pin.
A spare coming in the 7th frame for Marshall Holman. Don Johnson calling attention of probably a bad rack, he thought, to our tournament director, Harry Golden.
Don Johnson, Chris, has always had a good strike ball, and he's really got it going today. But the key is he's hitting the left-hand lane. The right-hand lane, right now he's questioning the rack, but the right-hand lane has been the lane he's hit so well. He's struck on it almost every shot since the start of the finals today. And if he can get by the left-hand lane consistently, I think he'll have a real run at that 300 game on this shot.
Gets the re-rack. And Bo, you remember when he bowled a 299 in the finals of the 1970 Firestone Tournament of Champions.
Leaving a solid 10 on the last ball. It really disappointed. One of the classic pictures is his reaction afterwards.
Down the 7th frame. 6 in a row. Up high, leaving the 4-7.
Just gritting his teeth, and he just got out of time, Chris. Running up there a little too fast to the foul line and just pulled the ball. He almost knew it when he got it. I watched him start tightening up right here. You can almost see the emotion on his face. See him tighten up and just really pull through a little too hard at the bottom, and too much arm veer, too much hook, and 4-7. What a reaction.
But continuing to mark, coming in the 7th frame, leading by 29. And remember, the winner will meet the tournament leader, Earl Anthony, for the $14,000 first prize.
Rick Jaskey, Wayne Zahn, national champion. Jim Frazier won his first tournament last year in the finals. Ed Ressler Jr., Lincoln Mercury champ. Greg Gerton bowling well. And Rick Minear once again in the top 24.
Back in the striking groove again. This one on the left lane. And the pressure on Marshall Holman.
Hector Valenzuela up there. Mickey Heim will be home for the King Louis Open next week in Kansas City. Joe Hutchinson, Tommy Hudson, who was a Rolaids leader last week. Powerful Dennis Suarez, Sam Flanagan, national champion Les Schisler, former U.S. Open champion Les Schisler, Lee Taylor, Jim Plessinger rounding out the field.
8th frame. The 7 on the right lane.
You know, when we came up with the top 24, Chris, in the number 18 position, you saw Tommy Hudson, and there was not a parity in his money winnings. And the reason was is he was the alternate and had to go in for Don Bell and replace him after 26 games of the tournament. And he worked himself up from 24th to 18th, and they split the money. Don Bell and Tommy Hudson.
Marshall Holman with a Panther-like approach, staying low and just attacking the line and the pins. Now 30-pin difference. This man sees what we're saying. He trails Don Johnson, and he'll be now shooting in the 9th frame.
He knows he's in trouble. He must strike out to have a chance to win. A possible 238 for Marshall Holman. Don Johnson working at a 248 pace right now. It's difficult lane.
Okay, striking in the 9th for Marshall Holman.
He's still on the hunt. Don Johnson's job is to mark in the 9th and 10th and shut out Marshall Holman. If he gives him an opening, Holman can get up in the 10th and still strike out and bring out a victory.
Watching with all of you, a great Hall of Fame football player, the Green Bay Packers, whose home is right here, Jim Taylor. Don Johnson striking, only one spare, and this is his 3rd match, averaging 235 coming in. That strike was in the 9th, leading by 40 now.
Kokomo's got the match well locked up. And, you know, Chris, we've had a lot of celebrities out here, and Jim Taylor, I checked him out, and he's really in good shape. You know, he's on ABC Superstars and did a great job in the veterans group, and he's really training. Kokomo with a possible 278.
Leaving the 6-10 on the left lane, Don Johnson. And, of course, Wide World follows over most of these stations. And coverage from the University of Notre Dame, we will see the Soviet Union gymnastic team, led, of course, by Olga Korbut and Nellie Kim, the figure-8 stock car championships from Gardena, California, and the barrel jumping championship of the world, Northbrook, Illinois. An open frame as we, nevertheless, have a winner. Don Johnson with a 246. Keeps getting stronger as he has just won his 3rd game, and now he will meet Earl Anthony in the final for $14,000 at a possible $250,000.
With the next.
And now we're very close to a most unique final match in our 16 years of covering the Professional Bowlers Tour. The tournament leader, Earl Anthony, will now meet Don Johnson, who has won 3 games in a row. $14,000 to the winner, but there is always that possibility of one of the two bowling a perfect 300 game. Should that be the case, Ralph Weiger, president of Midas, you see him there with his wife, Kay, that check for $250,000 will go to the bowler of the perfect game. Plus, of course, the $14,000 winner share, $10,000 from ABC, and from Ford, a Thunderbird. A big, big match. You remember, in the last semifinal match, this man opened with 6 in a row. He keeps talking. Very good. You know, on spares, Nelson will occasionally on splits give you the odds of a professional making them. Now, the odds for an average league bowler to throw a 300 game is 420,000 to 1. Now, that goes down as far as professionals are concerned. According to the PBA, the odds are 6,000 to 1 for a pro to throw one during a tournament. Now, the odds for one to be thrown during this match you're looking at right now, televised finals, is 850 to 1. Earl Anthony. Well, they're both perfect after one frame. Here we go.
I'd like to see that number 1 come up, Chris. The super style of Earl Anthony. The short backswing, slightly bent elbow. Notice how level the shoulders, solid the head, the loft over the line. This man can do it all, just so relaxed. He would like to win that $250,000 more than anything. There's nothing left for him to do in bowling except do that right now.
I thought I saw his lips move. We have two bowlers that talk to themselves. Well, if that's one of the ingredients of success, try it. Leaving the 6.
Earl knew it when he let go of it, Chris. That was a bad shot. He very seldom does that, but Earl just babied the ball at the line. Now, watch that as he comes through. You'll watch his hand go over the top of the ball slightly and pull inside of his target line. See the inconsistent follow through. Earl was hoping for it to be a strike, but he knew when he let go he threw a bad shot. Now, he's showing a little disgust.
So now, with tongue-in-cheek, we say the best Earl could do today is earn $14,000. But here's Don, who's still alive. After one frame, that is.
Don Johnson, 25 PBA titles. Earl Anthony, leader with 27. Kokomo Kid with a winner win this tournament could close that gap to just one title again.
Mm-hmm. Still a chance with $250,000. Don Johnson. Next week, Overland Park, then the Miller Open in Milwaukee 2 weeks from today. 3 weeks from today, the Monroe Matic Open in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Then the AMF Pro Classic in Garden City, New York. Telecast on March 12th.
Powerful strike by Johnson. Get down on the knees. Driving out that 7. He left a solid 10 when he bowled a 299 at the Firestone. And he has 10 more strikes to go.
In the last match, he defeated the current Firestone Tournament of Champion winner, Marshall Holman. Oh, the 9.
Well, he breaks down to 4-9, and there goes the possibility of $250,000.
Ralph Weiger, president of Midas.
Kokomo Kid, giving him a little breathing room. He's got a $250,000 check in his hand. He can put it away now.
Hank Stram with a big smile on that suntan face. I imagine the insurance company is smiling, too.
No insurance. That
No.
was all Ralph Weiger's bankroll he had in his hand.
No wonder he can wear an ultra suede sport jacket. All right, it's a spare. Let's go back now and take a look at that stroke by Don Johnson.
Just the ball snapping through a little too hard. He tries to trip the 4-pin into the 9, but if it'll fall to the right a little bit, instead of forward, he had a chance. Kokomo Kid. Now it's all down for the title.
There's the Earl Anthony, 6'1" professional who averaged 240 this week. That strike coming in the 3rd frame.
Also, Chris, he shattered the 18-game qualifying record by averaging over 250 for the first 18 games, and the record he beat was by Don Johnson, who previously held it. He set it in South Bend, Indiana in 1971. So the two qualifying record holders bowling for the title of the Midas Open.
Okay, there you see the positioning of the ball. Strike up.
Ooh. 4-6. Once again, the left-hand lane. Johnson, the only one to conquer it today. All four of his opponents have had trouble over there. Right now, Earl Anthony is in real trouble. Ball breaking too sharply, leaving the 4-6, cutting right through the heart. He'll just go for one pin here. No possibility, really, of making it without a lucky break and kicking it out of the back.
The bowler of the year the last 3 years in a row, and the top money leader the last 3 years in a row. Earl Anthony with an open frame here in the final match. Will return after this. All but the 10 pin for Don Johnson. If you just joined us, he has won 3 games in a row, coming from the number 5 position to go against the tournament leader.
Two of the biggest winners ever in the game of bowling going head-to-head for the Midas Open Championship.
Don with a 20-pin lead. Lots of perspiration, lots of pressure. Cross lane now for the 10. All right.
Don Johnson, who really wants to win, Chris, almost worse than I've ever seen him win. It's been a while since he's been in the winner's circle, over 2 years, or going on his second year, and he was really determined. Just believe at this time yesterday, he was in 22nd place. And the reason he went into a slump, it's been a while since he's won. He had a sore wrist like Mark Roth used to have, and now he says it's strong and he's ready to go.
Big strike for Don Johnson here in our final head-to-head match for the $14,000 first prize. Leading by 20. Got that strike in the 5th, and now Earl Anthony will be shooting in the 5th at an open frame.
Earl, who used to be a pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles in a minor league organization before he turned to bowling, has made a lot of bowlers wish he could pitch baseball a little better and gone on the major leagues instead of whipping up on us out here.
110,000 plus last year. Like that. This looks so easy, so firm in everything he does.
Before the telecast today, Chris, I asked Earl why he's so successful and the other left-handers on the tour have been struggling.
I think the biggest problem most of the left-handers has, you can't cross too many boards in the first 16 feet. You can't belly the ball in what we call the head area. If you do, it's harder to hit the pocket and carry well. I try not to do that, and I think that's their biggest problem, is they do just too much of that.
What he means by bellying the ball is that's giving it too much room. That's the jargon for too much hook on a Pro Bowlers Tour.
And the professional who's won over $22,000 already this year with a big strike as we look front back.
Okay, the key thing to watch in Earl Anthony is the short swing, but notice the level shoulders and steady head, low profile. Okay, shoulder level on the backswing. Excellent form. Straight by his right foot. Solid follow through, down at the line. Perfect shot. He knows it when he lets go of it. Almost routine for Earl Anthony.
Ten pin on the right lane for Don Johnson.
A ringing 10. Kokomo Kid had what we call the weak 10 on the right lane before. He had lost the ball, but he caught it all that time and just left a solid wrap. The old saying is when one round object hits another round object, they don't always react the same. That's why you don't get a strike every time you throw it perfect.
This is the man that defeated Cliff McNeely, defeated Marshall Holman, he defeated Mark Roth. That's a spare for Johnson in the 6th frame. And now, leading by 10. And remember, Anthony, who is seated, when he shoots in the 7th, will have a double going for him. 14 to the winner, 8,000 to the loser.
The concentration of Don Johnson. Probably watch his lips move again, once again, reminding himself of what he has to do. There he goes. Keep his arm close to his body.
Leaving the 2 and 5.
Once again, the left lane. Johnson had mastered it for 3 games, defeating all 3 of his opponents. But now in the key final match, Leading by 8, he has lost the left lane. The last 3 frames has struggled.
Our thanks go to the PBA and its executive director, Joanna Nora, and to Sam Blanda and the expressway lanes here in Gretna for their cooperation. Prize money is furnished by Midas and the PBA. Spare for Don Johnson.
He makes the spare. There was a downfall of his opponents. The combination of the bucket, the 2-5 combination. Earl coming up with a chance to take the lead.
All right, 8 pins separating these two professionals in our final match. Bowling for $22,000. All but the 10.
Earl doesn't look like he's into it today, Chris, and I tell you can't go to slow pace against Don Johnson. He's having trouble on the right-hand lane now, and he had hit that so well. I guess his timing just might be a little off.
Smooth delivery to cover the 10 pin on the right lane for Earl Anthony. Now 9 pins separating these two bowlers.
Earl is second to Mark Roth in the money leanings so far this year, but whether he finishes first or second, he'll take over that lead again.
And for Don Johnson, who has 3,600 earned this year, a victory could bring him up in the top 5. Still talking. Beautiful.
You know, Chris, you get a feeling about some matches, and these two players are both experienced, proven winners. They've won 52 PBA titles between them, and I think it's going to go right to the 9th and 10th frame. Nobody's going to put anybody away. It's within a half a mark. Once again, Johnson disturbed, showing his experience. He backs off the approach, nothing to bother his concentration. In the 8th frame, cannot afford any mistakes at all against a man like Earl Anthony.
What do you do now? Start all over?
Yeah, start that mental approach he's doing. He's talking to himself. Now watch, he'll start it all over. Keeps his eyes on his target. Once he sets his eyes, he never moves. Steady head.
Very good. Shows all of us how it should be done with a strike in the 8th. A 9-pin lead for Johnson.
This 9th frame coming up is probably the most important 9th frame that Don Johnson has rolled in the last 2 years. He hasn't won. He can put Earl Anthony really on the ropes by catching a double in the 9th. Strike work.
Also watching here in our audience today, a great pro basketball coach. Many, many years, Butch Van Britakoff.
Kid has really put it on Earl, Chris.
Earl has a strike working for him as he gets ready to shoot in the 9th frame. Pete Fountain watching there to the right of Earl.
We say why it's such a key 9th frame. It's key for Earl right now because if he does not strike, he will have a lot of trouble winning this match. He can still put the pressure on Don Johnson. Earl strike in the 9th, 10th, and 11th can make Johnson get 2 strikes to win.
All right. All this for $22,000, split 14 to the winner, 8 to the loser. The flashing 10th frame, as you look at our sheet here, 9 pins separating these two champions. In other words, right here in the final stages, there's a difference of 6,000.
The first time Earl Anthony has had to take a chance to take the lead in this match. He's trailing by 9, a strike in the 10th will put him 1 pin ahead.
Away, not watching, but we all saw that it was a big strike and a 1-pin lead for Earl Anthony.
Situation is this. Earl can really put the pressure on the Kokomo Kid with a strike here. If he doesn't strike, we have a possibility of a tie and a sudden death roll-off. Kokomo not looking. Earl Anthony must concentrate on his target. Once again, the 4-6 that was the downfall of Earl Anthony in the fourth frame has really left him holding the bag right now. He has a possible 214 if he just gets one of them. John Johnson's job is to get up and get 9 spare strike if Earl can convert one of these pins.
Earl carefully checking score sheet. Covering the 9. It's his second open frame of this match, and it gives him a 214, and it gives Don Johnson a 2-pin lead.
Don Johnson with a strike will be the 1977 Midas Open champion. If he gets 9 spare strike, he can be the champion. If he gets any less than that, he'll either be the loser or will go into sudden death. He is showing more emotion on that shot than I've ever seen him throw. He was determined, grit his teeth, and he is the new Midas Open champion.
And $14,000 richer. Coming into this match had earned $3,600 thus far this year. Quite a birthday present for his son Jimmy, who was 8 today.
Don, on behalf of the 900 Midas dealers, we want to congratulate you. We're sorry we couldn't have given you $250,000, but here's $14,000 and a beautiful trophy showing a Midas muffler to keep your car quiet. Thank you much.
Thank you very much. All I can say is Midas makes the best mufflers in the whole world. Okay?
And if you go back northern Indiana, you'll need that muffler, believe me.
Thank you.
Congratulations again, Don.
Thank you very,
Thank you,
much.
Ralph. Once again, the final score in our final match was 236 to 214. This has been an ABC Sports presentation.